Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much to Stuart and the Pitt Street team for organising this event. Yes, I'm the Managing Director at Proteomics International Laboratories, and we focus in the area of diagnostics. Now, a standard disclaimer about forward-looking statements, of which I will make some. As a medtech, we focus on predictive diagnostics and precision medicine. We have three key tests which could each change the world in their own right. They're underpinned by a proprietary platform technology, and that's really important to what some of the things I'm going to talk about today. The tests that we have for diabetic kidney disease called ProMarker D, this is a test that's in commercialization for predicting chronic kidney disease in people with type 2, and we've recently shown it also works in type 1. We have US reimbursement in place for this test at $390 per test. For endometriosis, we have a test called ProMarker Endo. Endometriosis is a condition that affects 1 in 9 women. For ProMarker ESO, this is a test for esophageal cancer. This is one of the nastier cancers that's out there. Both of these two tests have shown excellent predictive, excellent diagnostic potential in the work that we've been doing. Now, each of these tests is a relatively simple blood test. We're trying to change the way that we diagnose these diseases and move things forward. From a corporate perspective, we're a relatively tightly held company. We've got good institutional backing and successful placement at the beginning of this year. We're based in Perth in Western Australia, as Stuart said. We have highly accredited facilities and our specialist technology platform that we use. Proteomics is about the analysis of proteins on an industrial scale. We also provide specialist analytical services, and we have clients around the world for that. And the revenue from that part of the business helps to offset our cash burn for the work that we do in commercialization and development of our other tests. And the revenue that we currently have, and historically that's in the 1 to 2 mil range, that doesn't include sales of our 3 tests, ProMarker D, ProMarker Endo, or ProMarker ESO. And obviously we're looking to change that in the near term. Part of the strategy is to bring in additional skills for that commercialization, bringing the test through, and we're at the back end of a recruitment process for bringing in new C-suite executives and the board renewal that goes with that. So we have that additional commercialization and diagnostic skills. We are also a lean organization. It's a team of 35, but our burn is $1.5 million per quarter. So we have a current cash runway, approximately 12 months if we don't bring in any additional revenue. And obviously we're looking to change that. The share price recently took a bit of a hit when we broke up with one of our partners. That's part of life. We're dealing with that. And what we're really focused on now is the next steps forward. So this is all about commercialization for us. It's really focusing on what we can do next. The science that we have is proven. We have over 20 years R&D experience that's led to our deep pipeline. We've got 3 highly accurate tests that are commercial ready. They service large unmet medical needs. They're going to save patient lives, and they're going to save healthcare billions of dollars. They are going to change the world in their own rights as we bring them through. But what we're excited about and what we're looking at now are new cost-effective routes to market. So if you look in the top right there, the pandemic really has changed the way we look at how we can bring a test through. We can cut out the middleman. It allows entities like us to go direct to the patient, working with some of our partners. Patients do expect virtual testing. Telemedicine is a real option, and there's now an ecosystem that exists that didn't exist previously to support this. If successful, that gives us much greater control over the process and also the potential to get a greater share of the revenue. And these are very cost-effective routes to market when we compare it to the traditional route of putting boots on the ground and putting a sales force in place in a country like the US. Very prohibitive in terms of cost, or at least certainly expensive, and a path that we have not chosen to take before. But we see direct to patient as a much more cost-effective route. In parallel with that, what we're also seeing is that these new commercial opportunities for specialized tests, like as there are new regulatory pathways that are opening, and there's better awareness of the importance of using testing services rather than turning everything into a kit. In the US, we work through what's known as the laboratory developed test path, the LDT path, and CLIA certified labs. They are our potential partners for running the test in the US, and there are now equivalent paths that have been established in Australia and in Europe that lets us run a sophisticated technology platform that we use, which is called mass spectrometry, and apply this in a clinical use. We have a highly skilled team that can set up and establish these laboratories in other parts of the world. In the past, we've re-engineered our technology onto a simpler platform in immunoassay in the case of our ProMarker-D test. That took a couple of years to do. Now, with the advances in technology and the advance of the regulatory realm, we can bring tests through faster. And there's a really nice example of what C2N Diagnostics have done with their Alzheimer's test, where they have managed to start to launch that test. It's a very similar technology platform to ours. It's also a protein-based blood marker test. And that's a nice example of what we are now looking at doing with our new tests coming through. Importantly, we also have whole of market appeal from pharmaceutical companies through to the pathology labs and to the patient. What is the problem that we're looking to address? Diabetes affects over 500 million people worldwide, 32 million in the US alone. Endometriosis, that's a condition where tissue grows from the uterus into other organs in the body. Very painful condition, 1 in 9 women affected. Esophageal cancer, that affects 1% to 2% of Western populations. This is primarily a disease that affects older men. So we've got gender balance in our test, endometriosis for women, esophageal cancer for men. This is a test that could change the way we approach this disease. Esophageal cancer is primarily diagnosed by an endoscopy. There are 1.5 million endoscopies performed per year in the US alone. These are our target audiences where we're looking to bring in our blood tests as an alternative. The solutions that we have developed is using precision medicine to target these areas of unmet need. Why do we work in diabetes? Well, 1 in 3 people with diabetes currently have chronic kidney disease. That's because the existing standard of care tests are 50 years old and not very good. If you don't pick up diabetic kidney disease early, then you end up on dialysis or kidney transplant. Our test can predict the onset of disease up to 4 years in advance. Now, we've recently shown that it also works in type 1 diabetes, which is approximately 10% of the diabetes population. So that's an exciting advance. And there are therapeutic options available to treat these patients. So the SGLT2 drugs that like empagliflozin, GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic have all now been shown to also be useful for patients with kidney disease on top of their use in diabetes. So there are treatments available, and we're looking at launching ProMarker-D now in Q1 of next calendar year. For endometriosis, 1 in 9 women affected, diagnosis time 7 to 10 years. It's currently diagnosed by invasive surgery. The reason that diagnosis time is so long is because doctors are unwilling to prescribe or recommend doing invasive surgery on younger women. We need an alternative, and our blood test could potentially be that. And now we're seeing significant community interest in this area and much more awareness of what endometriosis is. I'm sure many of you may not have heard of it 5 years ago if you're as men, but now at least we can start to recognize the importance of doing more in this area. Looking to launch this test in Q2 of next calendar year. ProMarker ESO, as I said, this is a nasty cancer, 1 in 20 cancer deaths worldwide, very low 5-year survival rate because we don't pick it up. Our test and its potential alternative to that endoscopy screen, which is a costly and time-consuming exercise and frequently doesn't work. Again, now we're focused on an early launch of this test in Q1 of next calendar year. The pathways that we're looking at, the traditional licensing model where we work with our partner, that's what we were doing in the US, license it to the pathology lab or to a distributor to sell the test. The test gets run by the partner. The results can be uploaded to our cloud-based software at the ProMarker hub, and that can generate a report back to the patient. We get a royalty on every test sold. Very important route to market. We continue to pursue this. The traditional licensing model, the weakness is that it's all in the hands of the partner. If the partner doesn't do what's on the contract, then there's limited ways of intervening in that process. So we're conscious of that and working with groups who are aligned with the speed at which we can move ourselves. And we see that opportunity in the direct-to-consumer and direct-to-patient and the digital health system. This is a new way of approaching healthcare by establishing that reference laboratory, making use of the telehealth consults that are now possible, the ecosystem that has been created to move samples around and get patients tested quickly is there. Results can still be uploaded to the hub, and a potential for us to receive a greater payment at the end of that process. So we're looking here at trying to significantly speed up the time from diagnosis to treatment, into the speed of being able to do this much more quickly in terms of weeks and months for bringing tests forward rather than in years. Both models are important. We're not saying we're going to do one ahead of the other, but we see the opportunity to do both together, which was simply not around when we were first looking at licensing opportunities for our ProMarker-D test in particular. Now, I put this slide up. There's a lot of detail on here. I'm not going to go into it. It's just to emphasize that for ProMarker-D, we've undertaken many bodies of work to have our test ready for its global rollout. From the intellectual property side, through large clinical studies in over 5,000 patients, through to more recent work, as I said, showing it works in type 1 diabetes. What I want to emphasize here is all the steps that have been completed and that we are pursuing the same paths for our other two tests for endometriosis and esophageal cancer, and many of these things are already underway. But we don't necessarily need to do all of them, as I said. So the manufacturing, what we've learned through this process is we can now bypass this step, and that could save 2 years in the development of bringing our tests forward. So it's recognizing that technology and the adoption of technology and the regulators' willingness to adopt that technology is starting to make a big difference. So the launch strategy in terms of if we go down that direct-to-patient route, what does it look like? Why are we doing it? Well, it's about building product awareness, driving that mainstream use, and then subsequent volume. It's about making the ProMarker tests the key tool for physicians and patients so that we can use the tests sooner. Engaging patients through consumer advertising, patient advocacy groups, working through nurse practitioners and physicians. We have a fantastic clinical advisory board already in place for ProMarker-D, which we established for the launch there. That's helping to guide us in how we bring ProMarker-D forward, and we're looking to grow similar boards for our ESO and endo tests. It's about motivating the patients to understand their risk of disease and then give easy access through that telehealth consult, and then providing the patient with the results quickly, being able to move through the process much more quickly, and that's what is now possible. As we develop this path, as we move through this, it's about driving and growing sales, building market awareness, particularly focusing on motivated patient groups. Endometriosis and type 1 diabetes are two groups that really lend themselves to this type of path to market, because you've got patients here who really care about their health and want to do something about it. They're much more likely to actually go out there and get a test done. So these are great ways of bringing this strategy through. It's about creating a buzz for the tests. That's going to then help to drive the more traditional routes. With these tests, we are looking at a self-pay model initially in terms of and bringing the test through. But for our ProMarker-D test, as I said, we've already got Centers for Medicare and Medicaid pricing and a PLA code, and that's what we can use for engaging with insurers about payment for that test. And for the new tests, again, a direct-to-patient opportunity process is about then building that market awareness and generating the case for reimbursement. And these are likely to be premium tests, ProMarker, Endo, and ESO, given the alternative is surgery, which is a potentially $2,000 to $3,000 US process. Obviously, we can develop good pricing for these new tests. To support that strategy, it's about launching the test through engagement with key opinion leaders and primary care physicians. The key take-home message from this is that we engage with those groups. And for ProMarker-D, for diabetic kidney disease, we've shown that 96% of physicians would be likely to use the test. So the message from the panels underneath is, with its extra information, they're going to change the way they look after patients. They're going to monitor more often. They're going to change the way they prescribe drugs. So in the diabetes space, ibuprofen is frequently used, but that's renal damaging. So you take a patient off that if you knew where they were going to be heading. SGLT2 inhibitors have been shown to be renal protective. So that drug is already used for diabetes. That's why HbA1c and is frequently used for working out first whether the drug should be taken. But now with a test like ProMarker D, we can recommend using these drugs as well, because they're now shown to be renal protective. So it's about managing that patient expectation, managing the physician's expectation, so we can tailor their therapy for that patient. That's where the precision medicine comes in. Our other focus is our existing partnerships. We have CE mark registration for ProMarker D in Europe. We have a partnership we've just announced with Euroscientific for selling the test in France, and a sales agency we've established in Europe to look for other markets, other partners. For us, the focus now is on establishing these independent reference laboratories, either in our own right or with our partners, and also assessing the reimbursement landscape so that we can ensure market access to the test for as maximum number of patients as possible. Also want to highlight our beta test site, effectively, which was Central America, and the partnership we've done there. That's been successful in getting the test to the point of it already being in market, and we're working there. We have that CMS, that's Center for Medicare and Pricing, Center for Medicare Services Pricing, in Puerto Rico as a test site, and we're currently working with our partner there, Omics Global Solution, for getting that reimbursement there, and that will be an important step as that comes through, and we'll look forward to talking more about that in the coming months. Very briefly, what was our platform technology? How did we get here? It's about finding a molecular fingerprint. So from a drop of blood, we can look at the protein pattern in that, and that tells us who's going to get a disease and who does not, or who has one and who does not. That lets us create our novel diagnostic tests. That is our intellectual property that we can sell or license. We do have a deep panel of tests. I'm not going to go into more detail on the other tests coming through, but we've always targeted areas of significant unmet medical need where we can make a difference for the patient and change the way that tests are going. As I said, our objective is to change the way that patients are looked after across the world. I'm going to talk a little bit more about endometriosis. Now, this will be a world-first blood test for this disease. It's in late-stage development. The question we're asking is, can we distinguish between individuals who are healthy from those who are symptomatic, from those who are endometriosis patients? So that's following the surgery. That's a laparoscopy, an incision through the abdomen, and then poke a camera around until you find the tissue in the other organs, and that's categorized through mild through to severe disease. Why do we want to be able to distinguish these groups? Well, I said 1 in 9 women have endometriosis, but in the healthy category, why would you want to look in that group? Well, in the IVF clinics, that number is 1 in 4 women have endometriosis. So that they have no obvious symptoms, but it's affecting fertility. So there's an exciting opportunity there to be able to use a test like ProMarker Endo in that environment to say, well, we need to do something first before you start an IVF treatment. So our prototype test that we identified, working with the Royal Women's Hospital in Melbourne, identified 90% accuracy. We have patents pending in all major jurisdictions. Now, the limitation of that test was that we, in the early stage, diagnosing between symptomatic patients and those with mild forms of endometriosis. We've been doing a lot of advanced statistical modeling with the data that we have to try to distinguish between those patients, and those results have recently been submitted for peer review publication. We're continuing to advance our modeling and the tests that we develop. We've got a very strong clinical and scientific team that underpins this, as I said. We use a traffic light system for our tests. So that means that we categorize people into the green zone or the red zone, and there's an amber zone in between. If you're in the green zone in our tests, we have very high rule out rates, up to 98, 99%, to say you will not develop this disease or you do not have the disease. That's obviously a very important messaging. In the red zone, you're highly likely to have the disease. You need to intervene. Obviously, we try and minimize the amber zone, but there are occasions when we're not so sure. But by optimizing the test across that traffic light system, we can get maximum levels of sensitivity and specificity and accuracy for the tests. Our focus currently is to adapt these tests for clinical launch. The discussions are underway with reference laboratories to do this across US and Europe, and we're focused particularly on preparing to launch ProMarker Endo in Australia in Q2 of next calendar year, and we continue to do a number of clinical studies to support this work. Esophageal cancer, we're looking here at a blood test to distinguish individuals who are healthy from those with esophageal adenocarcinoma, the full name for the condition. Why do we want to do this? Esophageal adenocarcinoma is very hard to detect. Many cases there are no symptoms. 50% of patients with it have chronic acid reflux, but the rest do not. 90% of cases are undetected. Even with an endoscopy, camera down the throat, take a biopsy, doesn't sound very pleasant, isn't. 25% of people are misdiagnosed then. So our prototype test identified 90% of people, working this time with the QIMR, Berkhofer Medical Research Institute, and we have patents granted in Europe, China, Australia, with others pending. This is where we use that traffic light system. We've done additional work to optimize that, and we're going to present the latest results from our studies at the World Esophageal Diseases Congress at the end of this month. Again, we're focusing on adapting this test for early clinical use with this specialized technology platform, again, engaging with reference laboratories and preparing to launch the test in Australia in Q1 of next year. We have a deep pipeline. I'm not going to go into more detail. Oxidative stress affects almost every disease on the planet. This is fantastic technology. We're particularly looking at athletic monitoring potential there in professional sports or the thoroughbred industry. Proof of concept studies being finalized. To wrap up, we're looking at potential share price catalysts throughout this financial year. Our target dates for first sales are ProMarker D in the first half of next year in the US, launching ProMarker D in Australia and Europe through our partners, launching ProMarker Endo and ESO in Australia in early next year. Ongoing clinical and technical results from our studies which we'll be announcing in the near term, supporting that with regulatory and reimbursement submissions, particularly FDA breakthrough for the coming tests, Endo and ESO next year. To wrap up, we have a disruptive cutting-edge technology, proven in-house diagnostics platform. The ProMarker D test is de-risked, patented, and revenue ready. The ProMarker Endo and ESO tests are at that commercialization stage. The tests are all scalable with high margins. We have whole of market appeal, and it's a very vibrant sector as we start to realize the importance of precision medicine. Thank you.
All right, questions for Richard, and we'll go for Dan. And just for those folks online, you can plug your questions in there. We'll endeavour to take those. So, first question from Dan.
I wonder if you're able to expand a bit more on what went on with Sonic and how you were able to terminate it under their agreement.
Well, what went on with Sonic is that it didn't go on as we planned under the agreement. And so, the milestones that we had in place for commercialization, we weren't able to achieve those in the timeframes, and we took the painful decision that we needed to move on. So at the end of the day, we were supposed to launch the test at the beginning of this year. We're now 9 months in, and we hadn't seen the progress we expected, and we decided that finding a new partner was a better way forward.
All right. So my question is the world ready for direct-to-consumer or direct-to-patient diagnostics? I've often thought I'd love to order up that diagnostic, but I've got to go muck around with my GP first. Has that time changed, and are you set to benefit from that?
Yes, we think that time has changed, and yes, we can benefit from that. I think in some parts of the world, the only way you're going to see a doctor is via telehealth consult because you can't get an appointment. So there's the flippant answer, but there's the serious answer now that patients want to take care of their own future, and particularly new generations coming through. They see clicking on the computer and ordering a telehealth consult in the same way that they previously go and order something from Amazon. So Amazon have now got a massive health division. It speaks for itself.
Michael, we've got questions online? All right. Now, another one from me. Go back in time. Why did we pick ProMarker D as the first cab off the rank? Obviously, it's a large market opportunity, but I look at some of the stuff you've got in the pipeline, like endometriosis. That's potentially more powerful.
Yes, endometriosis is a really important area. ProMarker D was the first area that we were identified working with our partners. So the key message for what we do is we work with the best groups in the world in these areas, or certainly the best groups in the Southern Hemisphere. Promarket E was diabetes was the first one that came to us back in 2007-8. We first had the concept of working in that disease. That let us build the platform. And from there, our team identified endometriosis as an area to work into. And we started working on that about 5-6 years ago.
You've been with this company pretty much since its beginning, which the world was a very different place in 2001 than it is in 2024. What's been the biggest challenge that you and your colleagues have faced on the journey?
Certainly when we set the company up in 2001, as we say, the landscape, the ecosystem wasn't there to do this. So biggest challenge would be getting investors to recognise that these things take a long time.
Yeah, you and me both.
Absolutely, but you've got to be patient. But there's plenty of examples of people getting there. Good science will become good technology with the right team involved. We have the right team. It's when, not if.
Thank Richard Lipscombe.
Thank you.